It is the biggest parliamentary bill the country has ever seen. It runs to tens of thousands of pages, more than 50,000 in total. And it is pretty much as long and complicated as the debate that surrounded the birth of the new high-speed rail link for the UK. Today, the bill that could make HS2 a reality is published. What we have is a planning application for the £50 billion scheme, and the level of detail in the document drills down far enough to almost consider every blade of grass. Over the weekend, the Transport Secretary Patrick McLaughlin said that HS2 must be built for the good of our children and that doubters and defeatists cannot be allowed to dictate the future of Britain. Groundworks for the new line can begin within months, although today's bill must come into law before the major bulk of building takes place and before the government can use compulsory purchase orders to buy up people's homes along the route. I wonder if your home is one of them. Construction of the track from London to Birmingham is due to begin as early as 2016, with the line opening in 2026. Massive project, and it still faces huge opposition. Campaigners against it are holding a demonstration outside Westminster today. Thousands of objections will be formally lodged against the bill. So has the Transport Secretary got it right? David Jones emails and says, I can't believe that I am alone in feeling that we as a nation could and should be doing something far more creative with 40 to 50 billion pounds than building a simple railway track between London and Birmingham. It is preposterous. And the sooner Mr. McLaughlin and his cohorts ditch the whole thing, the better. We've got to address the lack of manufacturing industry, social housing, unemployment, crime, immigration, and plenty more before we waste such an enormous amount of money on bringing London and Birmingham 20 minutes closer to each other. And people ringing in from other cities. I mentioned Cardiff. You could go down south, Plymouth, Portsmouth. You could go right up to Dundee and Angus and Durham and Newcastle and say, wait a minute, why are we not covered? Fred Osborne's in Walsall, and he says, how many members of the front bench will see their properties affected by HS2? I've seen grown men crying because they are going to lose their businesses or their houses to build this new train line. I really feel for those who will be hit. On the phone, we got Richard Houghton. You're close to this line, Richard.
I am, yes, but I was really calling up my role at HS2 Action Alliance. We're a group campaigning against HS2 around the business case.
OK, tell us why.
Well, first of all, just underpinning this 55,000-page bill is the business case, and the last one was issued in October. And I'll pick out a couple of things. The first thing they said was that we have to have this because the main London to Birmingham line, the West Coast Main Line, is full. It's running at rush hour at 60%, but if you're unfortunate enough to come into Paddington, you're running at 99% passenger capacity, and Waterloo's running at 91%. So it's the Euston line, in West Coast Main Line into Euston, is the second least busy. So first of all, that doesn't really stack up.
It still sounds quite busy if it's 91%.
No, Waterloo's 91%, Paddington is 99%, Euston's 60%.
Okay.
So that's the first thing, is if you're going to start addressing passenger overcrowding, start on the lines into Waterloo and Paddington, please. I think the other thing that's problematic for lots of people involved in this, as your earlier message just said, the government estimates there's 486,000 properties within a kilometre of the line.
Uh-huh.
And under the current proposals that they're for compensation, only 2% of those would get any compensation at all.
I wanted to ask about this. How does the compensation work? How close do you have to be able to sell your house to the government?
Somewhere between 60 and 120 metres, depending on where you are on the line.
So you could be quite close and have no chance of selling it? Yeah,
we reckon there's about £12 billion of loss in property value based on the government figures that won't be compensated.
So you're a mile from the line, so what's it done to your house?
Well, I don't know. I haven't put it on the market.
Give us a guess.
So I'm not going to. Well, I know in the area that two things you can tell. One, that the estate agents are charging £1,500 to put your property on the market. They won't do it without that fee now, so they don't expect them to sell. But I know that, if you're nearer the line, I have friends who live very close to the line, and their properties have been valued at zero.
OK, Richard, thank you very much indeed. Margaret emails and says, I live in Plymouth and I'm so angry about the amount of money being spent on this new rail link. We here in Plymouth have no airport. The railways are a joke and the roads are another form of transport in the hands of weather conditions. Come on, government, help us out in Plymouth. Help us out in the southwest, she says, before spending billions on a route which already exists. And Richard, one of the points he made was that actually the London-Birmingham train routes, he claims, are among the least busy at the moment. So why then enlarge them. Abigail King is in Kensal Green in London. So wait, I'm just thinking, are you on the route? Surely not.
Yeah, right on the route, and I'm gutted about the whole thing. It's literally going to be 40 metres under our house.
Oh, so they're tunnelling under it, are they?
Right underneath the house, so 40 metres below the house. So,
will you hear
can
that?
You imagine it? Yeah, a 200-mile-an-hour train, 40 metres under your house.
I don't know.
I can't.
I used to go to a church which was above a tube line, and there was the odd rumble, but, it was covered up by hymns.
I don't think that's going to be the case, though. They're talking about a 200-mile-an-hour train that's going to run the whole route of London, so it'll run literally under the whole of North London.
And have you done the thing of getting your house valued?
We've looked at everything. I mean, the whole thing is a complete disaster. No one is making enough noise about this. This is going to the route will actually run right under Kensal Green Cemetery. So this is going through a very old, ancient, protected, beautiful cemetery. And under our house, all the way through Kensal Rise, all the way through all the way up, and I just can't understand why they're doing it. It doesn't make any sense. There are existing routes that are in place that are already struggling. Why aren't they propping up the current infrastructure?
Do you remember the moment?
Why are we having to spend more?
How did you discover this? Did you open the papers one day and you thought, oh my goodness?
Do you know, the first thing I heard about it was when the Kensal Green Association came round and knocked on our door and they said, can you help us? And I said, what's going on? They said, this has just been announced. We need your support. We need your help. We've got to try and, we've got to put in our claim that we're not happy about this. And I was like, what the hell? Then there were various meetings that went on. They've spoken to all the residents. They've had various things. They've had, meetings we can go to and attend. They're talking about rubber lining tracks. I've spoken to someone from Network Rail. It's just a mess. No one really is clear about anything. So although they've published this bill, that they're now saying, we're going to survey the whole thing, I'm so unconvinced. I just believe that they're going to use this. They're not going to do a proper survey. They're not going to actually talk to the people that matters. They're not going to do the right research. They're going to tear up the countryside. They're going to tear through farms, villages, homes, people who've saved up all their lives for these beautiful houses and homes. And they're not going to do the proper work. And for what?
Okay, just one more question.
Are you half an hour faster? It's ridiculous.
Are you worried that your house is going to be damaged, or are you just worried about noise?
The house will be damaged. At the moment, we're having to deal with Crossrail, so the whole house shakes. So the next thing we're going to have to deal with is a train line underneath the house.
Thank you very much, Abigail King, BBC Radio 2. Tony Kingerby emails. And he says, can somebody please explain why our politicians plan to use public money to prop up private enterprise at a time when Network Rail has just announced an increase in its profits? The railways were privatised, weren't they? And they were given responsibility of managing the rail network. And now we have to throw billions at them. And then once completed, they're just able to increase their profits. Interesting comment. Paul is in Worcester and he takes to say, what about the great cathedral cities? Worcester has an atrocious rail service, Victorian track and signals, even worse trains. It takes longer to get to London now than it did in 1954. Is this progress that the government talks about? HS2 might be great for a few, but the rest of the country is crying out for rail investment. Gordon Latter in Portland says, why should the government be able to force somebody to sell their house? They can't make you sell your car or your TV. So why is your home different? For most people, their property is the most expensive thing they've ever bought. So it's wrong the government can take it away from you just to build HS2. So many people with opinions on this. Even if you're not near the line, you still got a view.